Yes, hello to you all once again. Welcome back to your number one and your favourite classic dirt bike TV channel, where of course we do our very best to bring you more of those old school vintage dirt bikes from way back in the day. And a quick hello again to all of the brand new subscribers who have just recently signed up to CDB TV. We're not too far away from that 16,000 subscribers total. So again, thanks to each and every one of you across the world for subscribing to my channel. So coming up now, we're going to take a look at a few nice bikes that I came across during my weekend at the 2022 Telford Classic Dirt Bike Show, and this particular set of examples were all sitting on the Bultaco Club UK stand over the course of the weekend. So without any further delay, let's jump straight into the video and take a look at these lovely Spanish Bultacos. Although just before we get into the video, a quick mention here about the Telford show, which is normally held at the Telford International Centre in February each year, and you can check out hundreds of old classic and vintage dirt bikes that are scattered around the very large halls inside the centre. But it's a cracking weekend if you're into your old classic dirt bikes, because they also have many machines for sale and tons of new and second-hand parts for your old vintage race bikes. So if you're not doing much in February of 2023, then why not just get yourself a ticket for this superb classic dirt bike weekend. And so anyhow, these featured examples that we're about to see were just some of the very nice Bultaco bikes that were sitting on the Bultaco Club UK stand at the 2022 show. Now, this very first machine is a quite exquisite 250 Bultaco Pursang, but on the day of the show I never actually got any information with regards this bike's year or model number, and I'm certainly not for a minute suggesting that I know everything about these featured Pursangs, but I think I'm going to stick my neck out again. I think it could be quite possibly a 1976 or even a 77 bike, but as I said, that's only really a guess on my part. So if all of you Bultaco experts out there know different, then please feel free to correct me in the comment section. Now, although this bike certainly looks like it's come straight off the 1970s production line, I'm pretty sure that it's undergone a full restoration at one time in its life. And I have to say that I don't actually know who did all the work on this bike, but they've certainly made a fantastic job, that's for sure. And this is probably one of the best Bultaco restos I've seen in quite some time. Although without doubt these were fantastic little race bikes and very popular across Europe during the 1970s, and their popularity was then sent into the stratosphere when American motocross racing legend Jim Pomeroy won the 1973 250 Spanish Grand Prix on what was basically a stock 250 Bultaco machine, and Jim Pomeroy completely blew away all of the opposition that day. And it's pretty fair to say that sales of these Bultacos across the USA after Jim Pomeroy's famous victory then escalated, and the Spanish Bultaco factory just couldn't produce them fast enough to keep up with the demand. And once again, there's certainly no doubting these Bultaco motors' credentials, because they were compact and powerful, and certainly more than capable of taking on anything that the Japanese had in the late 1970s. Now, the motor was just a simple two-stroke piston port engine that, as I remember, had a 5-speed gearbox and your standard wet multi-plate clutch. And of course, these engines all came from the factory with their highly polished alloy casings, which was quite a common sight on all of these 1970s Pursangs. And once again, another trademark of these Bultaco motors was the forward folding kickstart. And because this was still the 1970s, many manufacturers, including Bultaco, were still fitting these underslung exhaust systems on their machines, and many, as you'd expect, of these exhausts suffered major damage because of their proximity to the ground, although the pipe on this featured bike certainly looks factory fresh and almost brand new, and once again a credit to the person who put this bike together. But you can plainly see here that a lot of care and attention to detail has taken place when the owner put this motor back together, and as I said, even the engine alone looks even better than it did when it left the factory all those years ago. But these Bultaco engines, as I said, were very powerful and reliable as well, and as I remember, I think they kicked out around the 30 odd horsepower mark, which wasn't too shabby for such a small 250 two-stroke power plant. And once again, with a quality build such as this, the bike still has its original Beator front forks fitted and all looking like brand new once again. But old school drum brakes also, as you'd expect on a 1970s motorcycle. And as I remember, I'm pretty sure that these Bultaco drum brakes had some kind of chrome type plated inner surfaces to the hub, which was quite unusual when you think you needed plenty friction to enable that front brake to work. But once more, more originality on our Pursang with these lovely piggyback beater gas shocks bolted on to the rear. And again, as I said, I'm certainly no expert on Bultacos, but I'm pretty sure that it would have been some kind of beater shocks that would have been fitted onto these bikes way back in the day. And these piggyback beater gas shocks are not that easy to come by in these modern times, but again, very nice to see them fitted onto a quality bike such as this. And again, as I remember, some of the early Bultacos did have fiberglass fuel tanks, but I'm not exactly sure, but I think these later ones were of a plastic composition, and as you can see, this fuel cell here is absolutely immaculate and looks almost brand new, because you can still source new old stock parts for these Spanish bikes, as there are a few specialist companies out there who still supply these original items to fit onto these machines. Although I have to say that every single part on our 250 Pursang certainly looks proper and correct on this bike, and somebody's without doubt taken their time to make sure that all of the parts that are bolted onto it are correct for its manufactured year. And this particular bike here was quite typical of some of the quality machines that were on display at the 2022 Telford Classic Dirt Bike Show, and our featured Pursang 250 was without question one of the nicest of the many Bultacos that were scattered around the site over the 2 days. But again, a lovely example of a late 1970s Bultaco Pursang motocrosser. And you'd certainly have to look far and wide to find another 250 Pursang example in such as good condition as this one here. Now, another of the bikes that were sitting on the Bultaco Club UK stand was this immaculate 250 Pursang boat tail example, and this is more than likely another machine that's undergone the full restoration treatment by possibly one of the members of the club. Now again, I haven't a clue as to the bike's year, but it could be maybe a 1970 model, but again, I'm only guessing, so there's no need to jump on my head if that's not the case, because I didn't actually identify every single bike that I came across over the 2 days. But again, another superb example of one of these Bultaco boat tail racers. And of course, these Pursang boat tail bikes were given their name due to this quite unusual shaped tailpiece at the rear, which was said to resemble the upturned hull of a boat, which then gave them their boat tail title. And again, I'd expect that these parts would have originally been made of fiberglass way back in the day. Now, once more, the 250 two-stroke engine was an earlier version of the later 1970s motor that we had a look at on the previous Pursang, but this time, of course, with the round circular shaped barrel and head. But again, these were still powerful little power plants, and derivatives of this engine I think were also used on the Bultaco Sherpa trials machines of their day. But again, another very rare and quality Bultaco race bike, and apologies for not being able to supply further information about this bike, as usually at the show the exhibitors normally placed information cards on their bikes just to tell you a little bit about their history, although unfortunately that wasn't the case with this bike. But nevertheless, a cracking machine, and this boat tail example here still appears to still have its old school fiberglass panels fitted onto it as well. But another very nice bike from the Bultaco Club UK. Although certainly one of the more interesting pieces of Spanish Bultaco memorabilia that the club had on their stand on the day was the legendary Martin Lampkin's 1975 World Trials winning championship bike that he rode in that particular year's campaign. Now, this bike, as far as I'm aware, is still in its original condition from 1975, and if trials is the kind of off-road stuff that you're into, then you're certainly looking here at a bit of British motorcycling history in this iconic Sherpa machine. But Martin Lampkin was certainly one of Britain's greatest trials riders, and it wasn't only trials that Martin took part in, because he did occasionally race in scrambles and grass track events as well, or really any kind of sport that involved riding a motorcycle. And I'm pretty sure that Martin was only around 24 or 25 when he won the world title on this bike, after he endured a very long season duel riding against his old pal Malcolm Rathmell. And also not forgetting, of course, that Martin Lampkin was also British trials champion 3 times, and was also victorious in the popular Scottish 6 days trial event, taking wins in 1976, 77 and 1978. Now, I'm not entirely sure here if this bike is now privately owned, or maybe even been loaned to the club to put on display for the Telford weekend, but it's certainly a piece of trials history, that's for sure, and it's great that the bike's been left untouched and in the very same condition from 1975, and a pivotal reminder of the great man and his many achievements that he brought to not only British trials but to the Spanish Bultaco factory as well. And in this poster here that was also on display on the club stand, we see Martin on his World Championship winning Bultaco machine. But as you'd expect, there were many other nice Bultacos at the 2022 Telford Classic Dirt Bike Show, like this beautiful 360 or possibly 370 Pursang, but these bikes were all so tightly packed together you just couldn't really get a proper look at them. But again, another fantastic example of these iconic Spanish-made machines, and it would have been great if you could just have been able to pull one of these bikes out one at a time and take a proper look. But there you have it, just a few examples of the Spanish Bultacos that were on display at the 2022 Telford Show. Well, there you have it. I do hope you enjoyed that walk around those nice Bultaco machines, some of the bikes that I captured at the 2022 Telford Classic Dirt Bike Show. And as I said, if you're into your old classic dirt bikes, then the Telford International Centre is the place to be in February each year, because they do put on a fantastic weekend of these old vintage classic dirt bikes. And of course, it's a good chance also to pick up many spare parts and even old classic dirt bikes that are up for sale at the show. But we will be featuring more of these nice bikes from the Telford Show in the coming weeks and months. Right, so coming up next year on CDB TV, we're going to take a look at a bike that I actually came across at the VMX The Nations event at Farleigh Castle some years ago. Now, this is a very rare machine, and this is a 1978 Laverda LH250 bike, and we'll be taking a much closer look at this lovely machine when we return here to Classic Dirt Bike TV. But of course, until then, everybody continue to watch what you're doing out there, but of course, enjoy yourself while you're doing it and riding those old vintage dirt bikes. And I want to see you back here again very soon so we can talk about more of this old school vintage iron right here on your #1 and favourite Classic Dirt Bike TV.